next sitting day. Therefore, honourable members, I call on private and local orders of the day number 3.
Hutt City Council Graffiti Removal Bill, first reading.
I call the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I so move. Mr Speaker, the Hutt City Council Graffiti Removal Bill is a local bill from the Hutt City Council, which, for people who are not aware, is the area of Lower Hutt. And it is one which is coming in following, I think, one of the most extensive campaigns on graffiti during the local body elections on the part of Ray Wallace, who was successfully elected mayor at the last local body elections. And it is, I think it's fair to say that there were several points of differentiation in the campaign, but graffiti was one of them that the public took to heart. And one of the things that Mayor Wallace promised was to attempt to get as much of the graffiti off as possible down in the city, both from public and private places, and he's made considerable progress in this. And this bill is, I think, part of a bigger approach. There's been money budgeted for painting out graffiti. There has been a positive approach with young people in order to attempt to divert them from doing negative graffiti into doing things which are more constructive, and murals and painting. And one of the areas that in fact has been there for some time is this superb mural in the old village at Wainuiomata of Tana Umanga and Piriwepu that's been done by the young local artists. And Mr Speaker, it is absolutely clear that no one goes near that mural with any question of any graffiti, because it's something which is held proud to the hearts of the people at Wainuiomata, something of their favourite sons, done mainly by a number of young people. Mr Speaker, the Hutt does have a graffiti problem. There's no doubt about that. I think many communities do. There's been indexes and people do measures, and it's fair to say that we're not as bad as the old Auckland City and some other parts of Auckland, but it is something which residents are unhappy with. And as I say, a lot of progress has been made. But one of the areas which we did discuss before the local body elections, and this bill was introduced last year, was the problem that council had with private owners, often absentee owners, quite often owners of buildings which are semi-abandoned, places where there have been businesses in the past, and very occasionally houses that have sometimes been burnt out or haven't been used, and they have become the target for vandals and for graffiti. And the problem has been, and the problem is, that there's not a right for the council to go on the land and to paint out the graffiti in order to ensure that the area does look better. And Mr Speaker, just to make it absolutely clear, I'm sorry, I work on the assumption that people understood that this would go to the local government and environment select committee at the conclusion of this. So, Mr Speaker, there is a problem with privately owned, and we do have within the Hutt a number of absentee landlords. Sorry, not so much houses. It's more often old commercial buildings. There are, with the development of some of the more successful malls, there are some old shops around that are not used. Well, Housing New Zealand is you might have to go to Mumbai on the to get the phone answered, but that's not the point of this bill, which is one. Mr Speaker, the Summary Offences Act does work quite well at catching offenders, but it doesn't give permission to councils to go onto that private land. Mr Speaker, the way this has been set out, the requirements are pretty clear. There's a requirement to remove graffiti, but before that notice has to be given, 10 days notice has to be given. One of the problems, of course, is sometimes trying to find the owners, and therefore there are some requirements to give the notice in writing, to be specific about what the council intends to do and when they intend to do it. They've got to take reasonable attempts to consult. When they serve a notice, they've either got to give it to the person or send it to the person by fax or email at the latest address, and where it's a company to do that. I want to acknowledge the support that was indicated earlier by the other Hutt member, Holly Walker, and in fact, formerly there was actually a third Hutt member, not currently in the House, but just waiting to get in with someone going to London and someone else dying a couple of heartbeats away, Mr Quinn, and Mr Speaker. So there was a political unanimity on this, but Holly Walker has pointed out, and I think it's something that I'd like the Select Committee to consider, and that is to look carefully at the fact that graffiti is not defined within this bill, and there's a question about whether it needs to, whether in fact it's defined in some other places, or whether there's a common law interpretation of graffiti that will actually work for the purpose. Now, as I've indicated to the member, the short answer is I don't know, and it seems to be a very good thing for the Select Committee to have a good look at, to make sure that they're satisfied, and I think it's fair to say that neither the Hutt Council nor myself have such ownership or so wedded to the exact words in this bit of legislation that we wouldn't be happy about having a change to make it effective and to make it clear, because, I mean, the very example of the Umanga Wipu mural, which I indicated before, is on an abandoned building. It's, it is on something that's been left, and there might have been some marginality about the legality of doing it. But I think if we could, I wouldn't want anyone to go painting over that mural, because, in my opinion, certainly, it doesn't. I don't regard it as graffiti. And there are graffiti arts and graffiti artists, and there's a matter of working through that and making sure that works well. Mr Speaker, I'd like to conclude in the way that I started, to acknowledge Ray Wallace, the Mayor, the work that he has done in this area, the leadership that he's shown, and Mr Speaker, I do want to commend this bill to the House.
A point of order, the Honourable David Carter.
Mr Speaker, can I refer you to Standing Order 2831, speech of a member moving a first reading. The member moving the bill's first reading must, on the commencement of that member's speech, nominate the Select Committee to consider the bill. Listening to a very interesting speech by the Honourable Trevor Mallard, he did refer to the Select Committee, but not at the commencement of his speech.
Right, I'll hear the member.
Mr Speaker, I think it's fair to say that it was a rather long introduction to get to that point, and I apologise to the House for keeping the member waiting.
The point of order is, of course, correct. The member has apologised. I think the key ingredient was that it was done. So I think we'll just accept the apology and move on. I'll call Nikki Wagner.
Mr Speaker.